Quill joins Cabal's extremist group, and under his command, attacks and kills a fae servant of the Breakspears and takes his uniform. Vignette attempts to escape from jail by faking her death. She kicks Dombey in the face and makes a break for the door, but she is captured by the guards and beaten before being thrown back in her cell. Philo sits restrained in a chair. He believes that Philo killed Aisling and pulls out a gun and points it at Philo's head. Absalom pulls the trigger, but the gun jams. Philo insists that he didn't kill his mother. The first time he saw her was when she was lying in a pool of her own blood. He thought his father, who he now realizes is Absalom, was the killer, but he sees now that he was mistaken. Absalom was a college student when he first saw Aisling at a late-night salon on the Row. Out of everyone in the salon, she chose him, a farm boy from the hinterlands. When winter came, Absalom brought her to the very house they're standing in, his family's summer home. They were the strangest and most uncomplicated days of his life. But, when his father discovered their secret, he threatened to kill her unless Absalom broke it off. She asked to see him one more time after that, but he never showed up. He now realizes that what she wanted to tell him is that she was pregnant. Philo then shares his story with Absalom. Fergus is concerned with Agrias' relationship with Imogen. Their affair is not as well hidden as Agrias believes it to be. People are already talking. What Agrias is doing with Imogen is dangerous, and Fergus worries what dangers it might bring. The Swan is ready. Ezra is headed to take it out on its maiden voyage. They'll head up the coast and then come directly back. Imogen recommends inviting Agrias to dinner to celebrate as business partners, but Ezra has no desire to. Ezra also doesn't like the course Imogen is headed down and the unflattering assumptions that'll come with it should she continue to be seen with Agrias. Imogen exclaims that she's tired of worrying about what others think as it's no way to live. Imogen speaks as if Agrias has become a friend to her, Ezra states, but she insists that is not the case. Absalom will see to it that Vignette is released on Philo's behalf, but Philo cannot return to the city as he's the next target and he's supposed to be dead. Absalom would rather see Philo make off with Vignette than stay around and end up the Dark Asher next victim. Absalom wished he knew Philo better. Piety confronts Jonah on his secret affair with Sophie Longerbane. Piety advises him to stay away from her. The Longerbanes are dangerous. Piety knew the family since before Jonah was born. Jonah then reveals to his mother that he knows she was the one responsible for his abduction. She tells him it was for his own good, asking that he trust her. Piety begs Jonah to break it off with Sophie because she's his sister. Just as in her vision, the Dark Asher has come for the Harrispecks. She realizes that her time has come, and in the moments before her death, she mixes a blue, luminescent concoction and drinks it. She then turns around and stares the Dark Asher down. In doing so, she discovers the identity of its master, but is killed immediately after. Tourmalin goes around the Tetterby Hotel asking for donations in hopes of collecting enough guilders to free Vignette. Madame Moira makes a rather large donation, stating that they look after their own. Philo comes by and tells Tourmalin that Vignette is being released and that there's no need to go around asking for donations. Absalom returns home and tells Weintraut to bring him the Magister of Police. He enters his office and signs an order for Vignette's release. Unbeknownst to him, his fawn servant Crick was killed, and Quill has infiltrated his office. After giving Absalom his tea, Quill stabs him multiple times and runs out the office screaming death to the tyrant, and the hidden one is revealed. He doesn't make it far before being apprehended by Absalom's men. Weintraut then finds Absalom bleeding on the floor. Jonah shows up at Sophie Longerbane's home unannounced. Jonah informs her that they're siblings, however, Sophie is already very much aware. While the world may have boundaries, Sophie argues that they don't belong to that world. She even suggests that this isn't the first time incest has occurred in their family tree. It's how power is born. She then writes Jonah a note. Inside is an offer. Janila enters the room and tells Jonah that he's to return to Balefire. Weintraub informs Piety that Quill is being interrogated in the keep. They're questioning all the Critch servants and will be replacing them. Jonah arrives and demands to speak with his father, who's weak, but alive. Absalom's voice is weak, but he's likely to survive. Jonah asks his father if it ever crossed his mind how ill-equipped he is to assume his father's responsibilities had he not survived. Absalom would let Jonah get away with anything despite everything at stake. It's as if Absalom never saw Jonah as a true successor. Absalom denies this as Jonah carries his name. However, that's about all they have in common. Jonah reveals that he knows he is actually Ritter Longerbane's son. Absalom is shocked, though he admits that he's had his suspicions. Early on, Longerbane was a rival for Piety's affections. Nonetheless, Absalom claims Jonah as his own. Not that Jonah cares. Philo reveals to Tourmalin that he's Absalom Breakspear's bastard son. And all this time, Vignette knew his secret about him being a half-blood. Tourmalin asks Philo to take care of Vignette. They both need each other, even if Philo doesn't see it. She tells him to open the drawer. Inside is the book Kingdoms of the Moon that he gave to Vignette in Turnanock. Tourmalin told Vignette to burn it and be done with Philo, but she didn't because she still loves him. In the middle of the night, during a rainstorm, Imogen knocks on Agrias' door. She comes through the servants' entrance. Imogen came over to have sex, but is pushing her away to protect her, though Imogen won't back down. He tells her to go and pretend their encounter never happened. However, she refuses to do so. In reality, them being together obsesses him and he eventually admits this. But he doesn't believe they should be together. She questions the point of his charade of being human if he can't have everything it offers, because to her, being humans means taking what you want. Agrias slams her against the wall and they have sex, completely unaware that Ezra watches from outside. Ezra runs back into his house and grabs his gun. He then breaks into Agrias' home and follows the trail of clothes to the bedroom, where Agrias and Imogen lie naked in bed. Ezra throws Imogen her clothes and tells her to get dressed and go home. He then orders Agrias out the bed as he holds him at gunpoint. Imogen begs him to calm down, but Ezra is beyond reason. He cocks his gun, but before he can fire, Imogen disarms him. He then turns his aggression towards her, forcing Agrias to come to her aid. Agrias and Imogen run out the room, locking the door behind them. Ezra declares that wherever they go, he'll find them. Philo and Tourmalin start to suspect that something went wrong as Vignette is still in custody. Just downstairs, Fleury reveals to Madame Moira that the Haruspex is dead. And so, Philo and Tourmalin head down to her shop, where her body lays on the table, completely torn open. However, it didn't take her liver. Though, through some type of spell, the Haruspex is still alive to some degree. Weintraub tells Absalom that the press has caught wind of his attack and are asking questions. He also hands Absalom the order of release for Vignette, though the magistrate has yet to arrive. Piety enters and Absalom tells her that he had spoken to Jonah, who inadvertently helped him solve a riddle he had been thinking over. The Haruspex is suspended in the gloaming, between day and night. Between the breathe and the silence, with the warp and weft of creation unfurled before her. She can see it all so clearly now. Every threat and intersection. Absalom has figured out that Piety is the killer. She doubted that Jonah was his son, and it was Absalom's son who was augured for greatness. And he only had one son. Until, by some means known only to her, she discovered that there was somewhere in the world another son. Now she had a problem. She had no way of knowing if the future promised to her child belonged to another. But she knew that it couldn't belong to a dead man. So she orchestrated the murders of Aisling Carell, Headmaster Finch, and Dr. Morange to find the other son. Philo asks the Haruspex who did this to her. She reveals the master of the Dark Asher is Piety Breakspear. Piety demands to know who the other son is, but Absalom refuses to tell her, though he admits to having met him. Absalom insists that his other son is no threat as he's a half-blood, but Piety must be sure of it. Absalom agrees to keep her murderous ways a secret, so long as she stops what she's doing, but she won't take that chance. She's determined to learn who the other son is, so when Absalom refuses to talk, she smothers him with his own pillow until he stops breathing. The Haruspecs can still sense Piety. Her rage is a bruise on time itself. It makes her strong and powerful. Her dark work is not yet done. More blood is being shed. Philo's father's blood, the Haruspecs reveals. She also tells him that Vignette is in danger. After killing her husband, Piety takes a knife and cuts Absalom open. She then removes his liver, and from it, she learns his secrets. She doesn't learn who the son is, however, she learns of his weakness, that being a girl he loves. Wrapped in the blanket, Piety finds the order for Vignette's release. In that, she learned of Vignette and her location. Sergeant Dombey frees Vignette from her cell, informing her that someone has sent a coach to pick her up. The Haruspecs tells Philo and Tourmalin that time is running out. As they leave, the Haruspecs' eyes fade and a blue smoke leaves her mouth. Philo then heads into the sewers towards Balefire, leaving Tourmalin behind. Jonah races to his father's room to find that he's been killed and cut open. When Magister Hood reveals that Piety was the last to see Absalom alive, Jonah orders her capture. With Absalom dead, Jonah is the new chancellor until the next election. Vignette is taken into the sewers and strapped to a chair. Piety asks that Vignette tell her where Philo is, or else she'll have to take out her liver to see for herself. In this moment, Vignette realizes that Piety created the Dark Asher. Philo spots the Dark Asher while moving through the sewers, though it appears asleep. He accidentally wakes it up while passing by. Piety and the Dark Asher's eyes become one and she sees that Philo is en route. Philo lures the Dark Asher through a tunnel and traps it under a door. With the Dark Asher pinned down, Philo cuts its head off with an axe. He proceeds into Piety's lair, where the bodies of Fae folk hang at every corner. Piety confronts Philo. She would have never even known he existed if not for his mother's blackmail note. She has to kill Philo to ensure Jonah's prosperous future. Despite decapitating the creature, the Dark Asher is very much still alive. It throws Philo across the room and reattaches its head. The Dark Asher continues its attack on Philo until Vignette sneaks up behind Piety and stabs her in the back of the head, killing both the Dark Asher and its master. Jonah, Weintraut, and Hood attend a meeting at Balefire to discuss the puck that attacked Absalom and his comrades. Afterward, he calls in Runyon, who asks if Piety has been found yet, which she hasn't. Among her personal belongings, they found a supposed blackmail letter from Aisling Carell. Runyon reads the letter and surmises that it was written by someone else. Jonah then fires Runyon as his arts and letters tutor and hires him as a special advisor as he'll need his guidance in the dark days to come. Jonah has discovered that Quill, the Puck assassin, is a member of a larger radical organization. Vignette plans to leave town with Philo. She's headed to Port Hoy and from their new freehold. Somewhere a couple like them won't be noticed. Vignette and Tourmalin give each other a hug and say that they love each other before parting ways. As Vignette and Philo attempt to leave, Vignette is turned away. No Critch is allowed in or out the city until further notice. Orders given following the assassination of the Chancellor by Puck cultists. All Critch are to be sequestered to the Row. Imogen and Agrius take off on the Swan. Sails set for someplace new and far away. While reading the blackmail note supposedly sent by Aisling, Jonah notices the handwriting matches that of the note given to him by Sophie. She admits her role in sending the letter. She learned of the rumor from her father, who refused to use the information as ammunition. Jonah threatens to have her arrested, but she argues that he won't as it's because of that letter that Jonah is now Chancellor. Her reason for doing this, simply put, chaos creates opportunity. Jonah and Sophie walk out side by side and join the parliament. Jonah states that their city's under siege. Threats from without and within. They stand at the precipice of a great and secret war that he intends to win. All the Fae folk of the burg are sequestered to the Row and placed in a concentration camp. Fleury, Madame Moira, Aphissa, and Cabal are amongst them. Faeries will be shot out the sky if they attempt to flee. Ezra looks off the dock to the sea, knowing that his sister is somewhere out there with Agrias. Imogen looks back at the city from the ship as she sets sail to someplace new. Jonah rallies Parliament, claiming they have a common enemy, who they must stand together against as one to prevail. He looks to Sophie and asks that she stand with him, to which she agrees, thus uniting the parties. Vignette is taken to the internment camp. Philo is denied entry due to his ability to pass as human. From opposite sides of the barbed wire barricade, Vignette promises Philo she'll find a way out. Fleury has packed her bags and attempts to fly away. Madame Moira tries to stop her, but she fails, and Fleury is shot out the sky. More concerned for Vignette now than ever before, Philo exposes himself to the guards, who after learning that he's Critch, allows him into the camp. Once inside, Philo joins Vignette.